Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be diving into something pretty fascinating, I think.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of like intersection of the, recent Bitcoin surge and the unexpected return of Donald Trump to the presidency.
Yeah.
And our main source for this is going to be this article from The Motley Fool. And it's titled, Should You Buy Bitcoin Below $115,000? So I think the first thing to point out is that, Bitcoin has had just a wild year.
It has.
I mean, breaking $100,000 multiple times, despite like some, serious headwinds.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't see that coming at the beginning of the year.
No, especially with, the interest rate environment and all that stuff.
Exactly.
But the real story here kind of starts with Trump's pro-crypto stance.
Right.
And that has really been sending ripples through the financial world.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so it's got everybody kind of wondering, is this a new era for Bitcoin?
Well, it's certainly shaping up that way. And what's been really interesting to watch is how Bitcoin has reacted to the more traditional market forces this year. I mean, we've had these, high interest rates, which typically, dampen enthusiasm for riskier assets.
Yeah.
Yet, Bitcoin rallied alongside tech and growth stocks, as inflation cooled down. We started hearing whispers of, potential interest rate cuts.
Yeah, it's almost like Bitcoin decided to just like play by its own rules.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, you layer in this Trump factor.
Right.
And prices have just gone through the roof. I mean, we're talking almost 50% since his election, even broke $101,000.
Wow.
I mean, some people might call it a coincidence, but I think, there's got to be more to it than that.
Oh, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Remember, during his campaign, Trump was very vocal about his crypto ambitions.
Yeah.
He was promising to make the U.S. like the crypto capital of the world. And that definitely resonated with, a lot of the crypto enthusiasts.
Absolutely.
And now, he's walking the walk. He's appointing all these pro-crypto figures.
He is.
To all these key positions.
Yeah.
And then, and then we have the departure of Gary Gensler.
Right.
The SEC chair.
It's huge.
I mean, that's huge. His relationship with the crypto industry was, shall we say, strained.
Yeah, a little bit rocky.
Yeah.
So we've got this pro-crypto president.
Right.
We've got a cabinet that seems to be on board.
Yeah.
And, potentially we have a friendlier regulatory landscape on the horizon.
Right.
I mean, it's no wonder that the crypto community is just buzzing with optimism right now.
Yeah. I mean, the article even quotes Coinbase's chief policy officer, Fire Shirzad.
Right.
And he's expecting swift legislative action on crypto under this new administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what are we expecting in terms of legislation?
Yeah, sure. So there are two key bills that are already kind of on the table.
Okay.
One is aimed at, establishing clear rules for the entire crypto market. And then another one is focusing specifically on stablecoin licenses.
Stablecoin licenses. Okay.
Yeah. And I know, stablecoins have been kind of a hot topic lately.
Yeah, they have.
But for those who are unfamiliar, stablecoins are digital assets that are designed to maintain a stable price by being pegged to an underlying asset.
Okay.
The U.S. dollar or even gold.
So like a one-to-one.
Yeah, basically.
Back in.
Yeah. And they're aiming to offer kind of the best of both worlds.
Got it.
The speed and convenience of crypto with the stability of traditional currencies.
Okay. I mean, so we've got all of these positive signals coming out of the U.S. government.
Right.
Do you think this is going to trigger some sort of domino effect globally?
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And one that's definitely worth exploring.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already seen countries like El Salvador,
right,
adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. Could this, U.S.-led crypto boom push other nations to kind of dip their toes in the water?
Yeah. I mean, imagine the implications.
Yeah.
I mean, international trade finance.
Yeah.
Even just the very concept of money as we know it.
Right. It could all be radically transformed. I mean, it raises some crucial questions. Could we see the emergence of a new global financial order?
Wow. Will
Bitcoin, with its limited supply and, decentralized nature, will it become the new gold standard?
Right.
Or will, the inherent volatility and uncertainty of the crypto market ultimately hinder its mainstream adoption?
I think these are some big questions.
They are big questions.
And I think that, our listeners are probably eager to hear more about this.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about this other factor that's driving Bitcoin's rise.
Okay.
And that is its growing reputation as an inflation hedge.
Right.
And this is where, that limited supply of 21 million Bitcoins really comes into play,
Yeah.
Creating this sense of scarcity.
Right, just like gold.
Similar to gold, exactly.
Yeah.
Even Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, he's acknowledged this.
He has.
Comparing Bitcoin to digital gold.
Yep.
And it's not just Powell.
Right.
BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has suggested allocating up to 2% of multi-asset portfolios to Bitcoin.
That's a big deal.
They see it as a potential hedge against inflation.
Yeah.
And a way to diversify, traditional investment portfolios.
Makes sense.
Of course, they also acknowledge the risks.
Of course.
Mainly, the volatility and the potential for limited adoption.
Right.
So, it kind of begs the question, should you buy Bitcoin under $115,000?
Good question.
The article lays out, the pros and cons, the potential for growth, the favorable regulatory landscape, Bitcoin's resilience, but also, the undeniable risks.
For sure.
Ultimately, the author suggests dollar cost averaging as a way to mitigate risk, which, involves investing a set amount at regular intervals, smoothing out your purchase price, and potentially, lowering your overall cost over time.
Yeah, that's a strategy that a lot of investors are familiar with.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on this whole, Bitcoin as digital gold narrative?
Yeah.
Is it a legitimate claim, or is it just hype fueled by, speculative frenzy?
Well, it's a complex question.
Yeah.
There's no denying that Bitcoin shares some characteristics with gold.
Right.
It's scarce, it's divisible, and it's portable. Plus, can't be manipulated by governments or central banks.
Right.
But gold has a proven track record as a store of value that spans, millennia.
Yeah, it does.
Bitcoin, on the other hand, is still in its relative infancy.
Right.
So its long-term viability as a hedge against inflation is yet to be fully tested.
That's a good point. There's a big difference between a theoretical hedge and one that's proven itself through multiple economic cycles.
Exactly.
So what are some of the key factors that could determine, Bitcoin's long-term success or failure in this regard?
Mainstream adoption is crucial. If Bitcoin remains, a niche asset primarily used by tech-savvy investors, its impact on the broader financial system will be limited.
Okay.
But if it gains, wider acceptance as a payment method, as a store of value, or even as a reserve asset for institutions, then its role as an inflation hedge could become more pronounced.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's all about network effects. The more people use it,
exactly,
the more valuable it becomes.
Right.
But, adoption isn't just about individual users.
Right.
We've talked about governments, but what about businesses?
That's another area where we're seeing some interesting developments.
Okay.
Major companies like Microsoft, PayPal, even Starbucks have started accepting Bitcoin as payment. This suggests that, businesses are becoming more comfortable with the idea of cryptocurrencies.
Right.
And they're exploring ways to integrate them into their operations.
Yeah, it seems like the tide is turning.
It does.
And with, Trump's push for crypto-friendly regulations, it's likely that we'll see even more businesses jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, probably.
Speaking of regulations, I want to circle back to stablecoins for a moment.
Sure.
They sound like a promising solution to, some of the volatility issues that plague Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
But they also seem to be attracting a lot of scrutiny from regulators.
Yeah, they are.
What's the rationale behind that?
Well, stablecoins present a unique challenge for regulators.
Okay.
Because they blur the lines between traditional finance and the crypto world.
Okay.
Remember, they're pegged to fiat currencies or commodities, which means that their stability relies on the underlying asset.
Right.
So regulators are concerned about, potential systemic risks, especially if a major stablecoin were to fail.
I see. So it's all about mitigating risks and protecting consumers.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
I can see their point.
Yeah.
But too much regulation could stifle innovation.
Right? It could. It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Regulators want to ensure stability and consumer protection without stifling the potential of this emerging technology.
Right.
We're likely to see, a gradual increase in regulation with a focus on transparency reserves and consumer safeguards.
Right.
The proposed legislation for stablecoin licenses is a step in that direction.
Yeah. It's about finding that sweet spot between innovation and oversight.
Exactly.
But, focusing on the U.S. perspective for a moment,
Okay.
do you think there's a risk that, excessive regulation could push crypto innovation overseas?
It's a valid concern. I mean,
Yeah.
if the U.S. regulatory environment becomes too restrictive,
Right.
it could create an opportunity for other countries to become crypto havens. I mean, we're already seeing countries like Switzerland and Singapore positioning themselves as, crypto-friendly jurisdictions.
Right.
The U.S. needs to strike the right balance to remain competitive in this rapidly evolving landscape.
Yeah, it's almost like a global race to become the epicenter of the crypto revolution.
Yeah, it kind of is.
But let's shift gears again and talk about another potential challenge for the crypto world, and that is environmental concerns.
Right.
We all know that Bitcoin mining can be energy intensive.
Yeah, it can be.
How big of an issue is this, and are there any solutions on the horizon?
It's an issue that the crypto community is actively addressing.
Okay.
Some projects are exploring more energy-efficient consensus mechanisms, such as proof of stake, which doesn't require the same level of computational power as Bitcoin's proof of work.
So it's not just about making Bitcoin itself more efficient,
Right.
but also finding alternative ways to validate transactions and secure the network.
Exactly. And we're also seeing a shift towards renewable energy sources for Bitcoin mining.
Okay.
Some miners are setting up operations in regions with abundant hydroelectric or geothermal power.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, it is.
It seems like there's a growing recognition that the long-term viability of crypto depends on addressing its environmental impact.
Absolutely. Sustainability is no longer an optional extra.
Right.
It's a core consideration for any technology that aspires to become truly mainstream.
Well said. And it's a reminder that even in this exciting and fast-paced world of crypto, we need to keep our eyes on the bigger picture.
Exactly. It's not just about chasing profits or riding the hype wave.
Right.
It's about understanding the potential of this technology to transform our world and ensuring that it evolves in a responsible and sustainable way.
This conversation has really highlighted the complexity of the crypto landscape.
It is complex.
I mean, there are so many factors at play. Technology, economics, politics, and even environmental concerns. It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
It is. It's a lot.
But I think it's also what makes it so fascinating.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a constantly evolving space.
Right.
With the potential to disrupt industries, reshape our financial system, and even challenge our fundamental understanding of money.
That's right.
I think our listener would agree it's a topic that sparks curiosity and encourages us to think critically about the future.
Absolutely.
But before we get too carried away with, grand visions of a crypto-powered world, I want to bring us back to the individual investor for a moment.
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone who's considering dipping their toes into the crypto waters for the first time?
The most important thing is to educate yourself.
Okay.
Don't just jump in based on hype or fear of missing out.
Right.
Take the time to understand the technology, the risks and the potential rewards.
Right.
There are countless resources available online and offline.
So it's about doing your due diligence and not letting emotions cloud your judgment.
Exactly. And remember, never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Okay, good advice.
Cryptocurrencies are still a relatively new and volatile asset class.
Right.
Don't let the allure of quick profits lead you to make rash decisions.
Sound advice.
Yeah.
And when it comes to choosing which cryptocurrencies to invest in, what are some key factors to consider?
The use case is crucial.
Well,
I mean, what problem is the cryptocurrency trying to solve?
Right.
Is there a real-world need for it?
Yeah.
Also look at the team behind the project.
Okay.
Do they have a proven track record?
Right.
Are they transparent about their goals and development roadmap?
So it's like evaluating any other investment, really.
It is.
You're looking for a solid foundation, a strong team,
Right.
and a clear vision for the future.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to diversify.
Okay.
The crypto market is vast and ever expanding.
It is.
Spreading your investments across multiple projects can help mitigate risk.
That's a smart strategy.
Yeah.
And one last piece of advice for our listener.
Remember that the crypto world is constantly evolving.
Okay.
What's true today might not be true tomorrow.
Right.
Stay informed, stay curious, and be prepared to adapt to the changing landscape.
Great advice.
Thanks.
And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from Bitcoin's surge and its potential as an inflation hedge to the regulatory landscape, the rise of stablecoins, and the environmental concerns surrounding crypto.
We did.
It's clear that this is a topic that will continue to dominate headlines and spark debate.
Oh, for sure.
For years to come.
Yeah, for years to come.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're at a pivotal moment here.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's surge, fueled by all these different factors, has really put it in the spotlight.
Yeah, front and center.
But, it's important to remember that the crypto world is so much bigger than Bitcoin alone.
Absolutely. We've talked about stablecoins.
Right.
But, there's a whole universe of altcoins out there.
Yeah.
Each with its own unique technology and purpose and community.
Right.
Some are focused on, decentralized finance, offering alternatives to traditional banking services.
Right.
Others are exploring applications in, gaming, supply chain management, even digital art.
It's really like the early days of the internet.
It is.
Where, all these new possibilities are emerging all the time.
It's exciting, but also a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it is a little bit overwhelming.
Especially for someone, who's just starting to explore this world beyond Bitcoin.
Right.
It can be difficult to know where to even begin.
That's true. It is a rapidly evolving landscape.
Yeah.
And it can be challenging to keep up with all the latest developments.
For sure.
So for someone in that position, where would you even suggest they begin?
Well, a good starting point is to identify your interests.
Okay.
What are you passionate about?
Right.
What problems do you see in the world that you think blockchain technology could help solve?
That's a good approach.
Yeah.
Find that intersection between your passions and the potential of this technology.
Exactly. And once you've, kind of identified a particular area or niche, you can start researching specific projects and communities that are working in that space.
Okay.
Look for projects that have a clear vision,
a
strong team, and a track record of delivering on their promises.
Right.
And, don't be afraid to engage with the community.
Okay.
Ask questions and learn from others who've been in this space longer than you.
So be an active participant, not just a passive observer.
Exactly. The crypto world thrives on collaboration and shared knowledge.
I like that.
Yeah.
But, I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about something that's been on my mind throughout this entire conversation. And that is, the potential downsides of a crypto-dominated world. We've talked about volatility and regulation and environmental concerns. But what about the potential for misuse?
Yeah, that's a good question. Could cryptocurrencies be used to facilitate illicit activities?
Sure.
Like money laundering or funding terrorism?
It's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
And it's one that, law enforcement agencies around the world are grappling with.
Right.
I mean, cryptocurrencies offer a degree of anonymity that can be attractive to those engaged in illegal activities.
Of course.
However, it's important to note that blockchain transactions are actually very transparent.
Right.
Every transaction is recorded on a public ledger, making it possible to trace the flow of funds.
So while cryptocurrencies might offer, some initial anonymity, they're not completely untraceable.
That's right. And law enforcement agencies are developing tools and techniques to track cryptocurrency transactions and identify those involved in illicit activities.
Good.
Moreover, many exchanges and platforms
now require users to undergo identity verification processes, making it more difficult for criminals to operate anonymously.
That's reassuring to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems like there's this constant, cat and mouse game between those trying to exploit the system and those trying to safeguard it.
It's an ongoing challenge, but it's one that the crypto community is taking very seriously.
Good.
Many projects are actively working on solutions to enhance security and transparency and accountability within the ecosystem.
It's a reminder that any technology, no matter how revolutionary, can be used for both good and bad purposes.
Absolutely.
It's up to us as a society to ensure that it's used responsibly and ethically.
I completely agree. We need to have, these open and honest conversations about the potential risks and challenges while also embracing, the transformative possibilities of this technology.
Yeah, well said. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah, it has been for me too.
We've explored, so many complexities of the crypto world.
Right.
From Bitcoin's surge and its potential impact on the global financial system to the rise of, altcoins and stablecoins and the ongoing debate about regulation and sustainability.
Right.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, and it's a testament to just how dynamic this space really is.
Yeah. I mean, what was once a fringe movement has now become a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
It's challenging traditional notions of finance and technology and even governance.
It really is, and it feels like this is a journey that's just beginning.
It is.
And, it's one that we're all invited to participate in.
We are all invited.
Whether you're, a seasoned investor, a curious observer,
Wow.
or simply someone who's just intrigued by the potential of this technology,
Wow.
there's a place for you in the crypto world.
Absolutely.
And I think, the most important thing is to stay informed.
Yeah.
Stay curious and never stop asking questions.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to resurface from this deep dive.
Great.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration
Yeah, thanks for having me.
of this, fascinating and ever-evolving world of crypto.
Absolutely.
Until our next adventure, stay curious, keep exploring, and happy diving.